Right now, some troubling signs for our local economy. Chances are you or someone you know works in the hospitality industry, but tourism numbers show a continued decline right here in Southern Nevada, and that dip in visitors is causing a big concern for many Valley workers.
It started as a dream worth $2.3 billion, a vision meant to outshine every light on the Las Vegas Strip. The Sphere wasn't built to be just another entertainment venue. It was designed to be the future, a glowing, living monument that promised to transport audiences into worlds no ordinary screen could ever create. For a time, it delivered exactly that. The lights, the sound, the spectacle, everything about it felt unreal. Celebrities filled the seats, social media flooded with awe, and for a fleeting moment, Las Vegas seemed to have reinvented magic itself. But behind the dazzle, something began to unravel. Costs spiraled out of control. The company started bleeding cash. And soon, the headlines that once celebrated its brilliance began to sound alarms. The billion-dollar marvel that once symbolized innovation was now fighting to survive. How did such a bold promise teeter so quickly on the edge of collapse? When the Sphere first illuminated the Las Vegas skyline, it was as if the future had arrived. The massive glowing orb towered over the city, a futuristic planet made of light, covered in over 50 million LED panels that shimmered and shifted in waves of color. It was hypnotic, drawing eyes from miles away. Visitors lined the highways to photograph the strange new landmark pulsing in the desert night. Before the doors even opened, it had already become one of the most photographed buildings on Earth, a physical manifestation of imagination and engineering fused together. Stepping inside felt like stepping into another dimension. The interior was a seamless 360-degree screen stretching taller than most city buildings. Every pixel moved in perfect synchronization, wrapping the audience in living motion. The visual immersion was overwhelming. Oceans, galaxies, and dreamlike landscapes unfolding in every direction. Sound came from everywhere and nowhere all at once, thanks to thousands of hidden speakers that mapped audio precisely to each seat. Every whisper, ripple, and echo landed exactly where it should. Critics called it a revolution. Artists called it a dream. The Sphere didn't just host concerts, it created universes. When it finally opened, U2's residency became the event the world couldn't stop watching. Tickets vanished in minutes. Fans described it as a sensory storm, unlike anything they'd ever seen. Clips flooded TikTok and YouTube, glowing, impossible scenes that made millions stop scrolling just to stare. Then came Postcard from Earth, directed by visionary filmmaker Darren Aronofsky. It wasn't a normal movie. It was engineered for the Sphere from the ground up. The story, a sweeping visual journey through Earth's ecosystems, pushed the technology to its limits. Viewers described moments so lifelike they felt physically disoriented. For a moment, the Sphere stood at the center of global entertainment, a place where technology and storytelling finally fused into something new. Investors were euphoric. Executives spoke of a new era for live performance. Sphere Entertainment, the company behind it, promised to change how humanity consumed media. Even skeptics had to admit it. The Sphere was an engineering triumph. The technology was breathtaking, the design unmatched. It seemed like nothing could go wrong. But beneath the surface, the glow hid a mounting crisis. Numbers began to tell a darker story. Chaos, runaway costs, and a business model that couldn't hold. Within months, the cracks were visible. The company's first quarterly report showed an operating loss of nearly $100 million in just 3 months. Despite sold-out shows and global attention, revenue wasn't covering the burn. By the end of the first fiscal year, losses had ballooned past $500 million. More than $500 million gone in 12 months. These weren't just construction overages or one-time costs. They were recurring operational losses, the kind that hinted a broken equation. Running the Sphere wasn't like operating a normal concert hall. Every LED, every sound panel, every inch of the massive dome required constant care. Teams of engineers worked around the clock to maintain the complex systems. Cooling the structure in the desert heat was a monumental expense. Add in security, cleaning, insurance, and staff for a 17,000-seat venue, and the costs reached levels few entertainment businesses could sustain. The Sphere wasn't a building. It was a living machine that cost millions each week just to stay alive. Revenue lagged far behind the vision. U2's residency drew global buzz, but much of the profit went to the band. Aronofsky's film drew strong crowds early, but interest faded once the novelty wore off. The problem was repeatability. Unlike a concert tour that evolves, or a Broadway show that can build long-term audiences, the Sphere's content didn't change. Once visitors had seen it, there was little reason to return. In a bid to boost attendance, Sphere Entertainment cut ticket prices. What began as a premium $119 experience slid to $99. The visuals were still stunning, the sound still perfect, but the price shift revealed the truth. Demand was softening. Reports surfaced of empty seats during supposedly sold-out events. The spectacle that once captivated the world was losing its grip. Then came the shock that rattled investor confidence, the sudden resignation of the company's chief financial officer. No scandal, no explanation, just a terse announcement. In corporate finance, a CFO's abrupt exit rarely happens without cause. It's often a sign of internal disputes, financial stress, or doubts about leadership. For Sphere Entertainment, it signaled growing unease. Analysts began to ask difficult questions. Could a venue this expensive ever be profitable? Was it even designed with sustainability in mind? Had it been built to impress the world without considering what came next? The 50 million lights shining over the desert masked a harsher truth. That vision had outrun reality.at. The center of it all stood James Dolan, the man behind the dream. As the head of Madison Square Garden and owner of the New York Knicks, Dolan's career had long balanced between ambition and controversy. Some hailed him as a visionary willing to take risks others wouldn't. Others called him stubborn, driven more by ego than strategy. Under his leadership, the Knicks had endured years of dismal performance. His companies faced public backlash for policies like using facial recognition on visitors. Yet through every storm, Dolan stayed defiant. The Sphere was his ultimate gamble, his moonshot. He wanted to build something timeless, something that would rewrite the rules of live entertainment. He poured enormous resources into it, commissioning custom-built LED panels and sound systems that had never existed before. Entire departments were created just to produce immersive media tailored to its screens. He even launched a dedicated content studio, envisioning a future where the Sphere became both a venue and a creative universe. But Dolan's strength, his uncompromising belief in his vision, may also have been the project's flaw. The Sphere wasn't just ambitious, it was designed on a scale that defied commercial logic. It wasn't a business first, it was a statement. And while statements can inspire, they rarely balance the books. Still, it's hard not to be amazed by what was achieved. The Sphere remains one of the most technologically advanced entertainment structures ever built, a place where imagination became architecture. It redefined what's possible when creativity meets engineering. But that same boldness came with a cost, a business model that may never catch up to its own brilliance. Now, the question isn't whether the Sphere can light up the sky. It already does that. The question is whether it can survive long enough to prove it was worth the risk. Can it evolve beyond its initial spectacle and become something sustainable? Or will it stand as a cautionary monument, a glowing reminder that even the brightest visions can burn out when they shine too hard, too fast? In Las Vegas, every bet carries risk. The Sphere was the biggest bet of all, one man's dream to build the future of entertainment. Whether it becomes a lasting legacy or a billion-dollar lesson will depend on what happens next. For now, its lights still shine over the desert, a brilliant symbol of both human ambition and the price of chasing the impossible. To James Dolan, the Sphere wasn't another project to list on a balance sheet. It was a legacy, the creation that would define his career and etch his name into entertainment history. For a while, it seemed he had done it. The world was mesmerized. Media coverage glowed with praise. Every night, the giant orb pulsed above Las Vegas like a monument to human ambition. But as the numbers turned red and costs climbed into the stratosphere, the same traits that once made Dolan a daring innovator began to look like weaknesses. When vision blurs into ego, accountability starts to fade. Budgets expand without restraint. Deadlines move with no urgency. Warning signs are softened or ignored entirely in the name of progress. Every overrun becomes necessary, every setback temporary. Yet no matter how passionate the vision, reality eventually reclaims the stage. Technology ages, audiences move on, and the energy that once filled the air begins to fade into silence. What began as a revolution quietly transforms into a financial risk with no easy escape. The Sphere still stands as one of modern entertainment's greatest achievements, a breathtaking fusion of art, engineering, and imagination. Its brilliance is undeniable, But behind the glow lies a simple truth. Innovation alone doesn't guarantee survival. The world marveled at what the sphere could do, but few stopped to ask what it would cost to keep it alive today. As the losses mount and investors grow restless, the once dazzling dream now sits at a crossroads. To understand where $2.3 billion disappeared, it helps to follow the trail. Nearly $1.4 billion went directly into the structure itself. The colossal steel dome, the curved frame, and the millions of custom LED panels that form its glowing shell. Every inch was built from scratch, engineered to withstand desert heat, earthquakes, and the immense weight of 17,000-seat digital theater. Inside, the complexity only deepened. The sphere was designed to make audiences forget the outside world. Its systems could simulate movement, vibration, and even environmental effects. Around $600 million was spent purely on technology, the next generation of sound, light, and motion. The audio system alone is a marvel. Thousands of speakers hidden behind walls, each precisely calibrated to deliver sound directly to individual seats. The massive screen spans 16,000 pixels from floor to ceiling, creating images so immersive they feel physical. None of it was off the shelf. Every piece was custom designed, tested, and refined over years of experimentation. That pioneering spirit came with staggering costs. The remaining $300 million covered everything else: operations, salaries, consultants, marketing, licensing, legal work, and the creation of Sphere Studios, a production hub dedicated to making original content exclusively for the venue. These were the support systems that kept the dream running: invisible, expensive, and essential. But buried in those numbers lies a critical flaw. Most of that money is sunk cost, investment that doesn't generate ongoing revenue. The steel, the screens, the servers, and the staff all exist to enable the show, not to make it profitable. The sphere needs constant momentum, steady attendance, consistent programming, and continuous investment. When that rhythm slows, the entire machine begins to shake. At the same time, Sphere Entertainment's parent company, MSG Networks, faces its own financial storm. It's weighed down by more than $850 million in debt, with repayment deadlines drawing closer. Refinancing is becoming harder as interest rates climb and investor patience thins. The Sphere was meant to be MSG's lifeline, a bold innovation that would usher in a new era of profitability. Instead, it's looking more like a liability, one that grows more expensive by the day. The most uncomfortable truth for investors is this: even if the Sphere sold out every night,